Today, the Attorney General of Kentucky announced the grand jury's decision on the killers of Breonna Taylor. And they got away with murder on the anniversary of the acquittal of Emmett Till's killers 65 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Hold on to your family. Lay low.
Justified in their use of force. That's what Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron had to say about Sergeant John Mattingly and Detective Miles Cosgrove. Officer Brett Hankinson faces 3 counts of wanton endangerment. That's it. An innocent black woman is killed and 3 white officers are, for all intents and purposes, free. This isn't to say that police work isn't dangerous, because it is. But it shouldn't be the same for those who are innocent. However, what the killing of Breonna Taylor does show is a rather clear bias when it comes to justice. Attorney General Daniel Cameron was all about facts. He said, "Our job is to present the facts to the grand jury, and the grand jury then applies the facts." Now, I don't know what facts the grand jury saw, but I do know a thing or two about how it works. I served on a federal grand jury, meting out justice once a week, every month for an entire year. Here's what we do know. 26-year-old emergency room technician Breonna Taylor is dead and was killed by the police. What else do we really need to hear? She's dead, and those that killed her are free. But let's dive into this some more. On March 13th, the police executed a no-knock search warrant, which is exactly what it sounds like. A judge signed the warrant for 2 men who were selling drugs nowhere near her apartment and then decided to tack on her place because a guy she once dated was believed to be one of the men and was using her place to receive packages. The police said this was all verified through the U.S. Postal Inspector. Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, were in bed and heard a loud bang at the door. They call out. Walker, fearing it might be the old boyfriend, goes to investigate. The police knock the door off the hinges and Walker fires, striking Sergeant Mattingly in the thigh. The police fire back. Detective Brett Hankinson fired 10 rounds into the apartment through the sliding glass patio door and windows that were covered with blinds. This is against department policy. Officers must know who they are shooting at. He was subsequently fired. Breonna Taylor was struck 5 times. She struggled for life at least 5 minutes. On raids such as these, it was police policy to have an ambulance outside for just such incidents. This night, the ambulance was dismissed an hour beforehand. The officers gave aid to their colleague who was struck in the leg, but not to Miss Taylor. Only after her boyfriend called 911 was she given medical attention, 20 minutes after she was shot. The coroner's office said she most likely died a minute after she was shot, even though she was still alive when the 911 call went out 5 minutes after the shooting. The no-knock warrant was changed before the raid to knock and announce. The police said they announced themselves several times. Mr. Walker, Breonna's boyfriend, said they never did. 1 neighbor said they heard the words police. 11 other neighbors never heard anything. In short, everyone contradicts the police. No drugs were ever found, and the U.S. Postal Inspector said there was no collaboration between them and law enforcement. Several months later, the police arrest Breonna's ex-boyfriend in possession of drugs. He told the press that she was never involved in the drug trade. Mr. Walker, who was licensed to carry a gun and said that he fired in self-defense out of fear for his life, was charged with attempted murder, but those charges were later dropped. The police filed a false incident report. They said Breonna had no injuries. She was shot 5 times. They said they didn't force their way in, even though they used a battering ram. There's no body cam footage. It's the word of the black community against 3 white police officers who killed Breonna Taylor. And yes, they killed her. There's no arguing that point because she's dead and they are the ones that pulled the trigger. 65 years earlier, on September 23, 1955, the same day the grand jury judgment was announced, J.W. Milam and Roy Bryant were acquitted of the brutal killing of Emmett Till. Sheriff Strider, despite signing the death certificate and marking off Emmett Till's race as black and handing his body over to the black mortuary and the black church for burial, testified on the stand that he couldn't be certain that the body was even black and that it was even Emmett. He said the body was probably in the river for 10 days instead of 3 and that perhaps the NAACP had planted it. Why would he do this? Because the system takes care of itself. It was about maintaining the racial order of the South. This wasn't just the defense of 2 white men for the killing of a black child. There was actually more involved in the killing. It was in defense of a system to maintain the status quo. They got away with murder, and the system made sure of it. The more things change, the more they stay the same. This has been Locked In with Loki.